Our final guest is Jillian Gilchrest, Connecticut State Representative who serves West Hartford and was first elected in 2018, also a former member of that town's Board of Education. Jillian, thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
So great to have you on. Literally been running this race for nearly a year now, Jillian. When I say running, we found out you were a candidate when you posted a video on your Instagram announcing your candidacy while exercising. Why was that move, and why was that the move that you made, and what made you decide that this was the right time to run for Congress?
Sure. I wanted to announce from somewhere comfortable, and the track next door to my house is a place I'm comfortable with. It was the right time because this country is a mess right now. And while I'm horrified by Donald Trump and what his administration's doing, I'm also really frustrated by the Democratic Party. And so I wanted to jump in to try and change things from the inside out.
Much of that legislative work focuses on women, children, and families. You're a social worker.
Yes.
What's this moment like for families or for women right now?
It is a really hard time for both. Women are scared. Women are angry. They're frustrated. Their rights are being stripped all across this country. And then families are really struggling to afford their basic needs. They want to be able to provide for their children, and that becomes harder and harder every day as grocery prices are going up, as electricity costs, as housing costs continue to rise.
There's so much there, and so much there ahead of you if you get elected, too. So where's like one area of, not necessarily affordability, but on those women and family and children's sort of health issues that you could, or even affordability issues that you could sort of focus in on right away?
So at its core, it's getting profit out of so many spaces. I mean, I get we're a capitalist society, but right now profit is what is dominating everything at the expense of so many. And so when we're looking at healthcare, we need to flip that system and make sure people can access the care they need. When we're looking at the workforce, we need to make sure people are paid wages that they can live on. And so the federal government needs to step in and rein in the ridiculous profit that a few are making at the expense of the many.
And there's a shortage of affordable child care in Connecticut. What role should the federal government play in that, if at all?
Sure. So I think we need an investment like we made in public education decades ago. Child care should be a federally funded program. People need it, not only to work, but to make sure their kids get a head start on K through 12. And so the system as it stands right now doesn't make sense, nor does it work. We're not paying our child care workers enough, and families can't afford the care. So you need the federal government to step in and fund some of this.
And how can they make a difference? Because I know Rosa DeLauro's been working on legislation forever to have sort of that permanent child tax credit. Is that something you would go for in the interim? Would you partner up with certain lawmakers? Would this be a committee of interest or something to you? Like, what would you do right away in order to help these children
Sure,
and their
and
families?
I appreciate the question because I think that's what distinguishes me from the other candidates is that it's the way I go about policy change. And so I think we need to be working on campaign finance reform the entire time we're working on any other policies, because right now our country is being run by corporations and billionaires who don't actually care about affordable childcare, right? And so we need to be working on that. And then it's getting in there, and it's me working with Democrats who I align with to push on our leadership to make sure this is a priority of the party and to push until we get the change.
Immigration remains a major political issue. If elected, what actions should Congress take to protect children in ICE custody in specific?
I think what's been incredibly frustrating is to see so much money thrown at ICE, which is now a paramilitary for the Trump administration, abducting people off the streets, when that money could have been invested in an immigration system all along that actually functions in this country. And so certainly children should not be separated from their parents. Not only does it cause trauma right there, but with the previous work I've done, there's a lot of things like human trafficking that are taking place and horrible things that are happening to these children. And our country should take no part in that.
A lot of the jobs that you've had, and now obviously your chief job here now as a lawmaker, or maybe you would say mom's your chief job. Mm-hmm. So maybe I should rephrase that. But what are you going to be using in order to try to be effective in Congress? Will it be that experience? What can you take from being a lawmaker to help you there?
Sure. So with being a mom, it's a multitasker. It's being able to keep track of multiple people's schedules in your head at all times.
Two teenagers. God bless you.
And your own, and making it all run, right, and work. And then as a lawmaker, it's really my coalition building skills. It's my understanding of the various dynamics that take place in a legislative body, and my passion for and interest in public policy that actually helps people.
Local reporters are remarking about how you and the other Democratic primary candidates are sort of simpatico, I guess, on a lot of the ideological issues in this race. I don't know if you would agree with that, but would you? Do you guys have similar views, or would you say that your priorities differ in certain ways?
I think people are using the same language, but I don't think we agree at all. And I think the voters need to follow the money. And so you've got two candidates, John Larson and Luke Bronin, who are taking very problematic money from corporations and billionaires. And I think that is telling of where they're going to be on policies. And so with me, I'm not taking that shady money, and I'm pushing for actual health care reform, increased wages for folks, holding corporations accountable.
So if you're concerned about the money and you're talking about campaign finance reform, how does a Jillian Gilchrest win then in that situation? How do you take donations? Like, what's the strategy play? Tell us a little bit about how you can get elected in that regard.
I mean, it's been fascinating to be a part of, and we'll see if it works. I've been taking money from individual people, and we've been door knocking. We've been doing a grassroots campaign to get the word out there, because you can't take from CEOs who run data centers if you're then going to want to hold data centers accountable. And so we're trying it in a different way. We've never seen a four-way primary, so we'll see how this plays out.
What's your message to voters who are still making their minds up at this time?
I think my message to voters is we can't just use the words of new energy and change. We actually need to elect people who will get down to Washington and look at how that works and question it. We can't have folks who just slide right into a broken system. And right now, Congress is not functioning because Democrats and Republicans are bought. And so we need to elect people who are going to work with others to get that money out of the way.
We got some time here, so help me now. Give me a little bit of a blueprint going forward here. I guess we're going to tell the future here. But if you're elected, what are you going to do first thing you get down there in D.C.? Sounds like you want to get to know the landscape. What are you going to be working towards at that point?
Sure. So first thing I'd be doing is meeting with as many Democrats as possible in the House and then in the Senate, and then meeting with Republicans to understand who I align with, what has been worked on before. So, for example, going back to the child care, okay, what policies have you pushed? What have been the barriers? How do we get around that? Who are the outside groups we work with? And I think it needs to be a three-pronged approach. Democrats need a plan for the future. So as soon as we get power and Trump is no longer in office, we can be pushing to take action. It's also holding Donald Trump and his administration accountable for the things they've done. And then it's looking at the various agencies that he's torn down and apart and figuring out how do we rebuild and rebuild better going forward.
You've been critical of Democrats in the regard when we're talking about money here. What else? Is there anything ideologically you'd like to see out of your colleagues that are Democrats, or at least down in D.C.? I know you don't want to prejudge them before you get down there, but just kind of help me understand ways that Democrats could be doing better in your mind right now.
I'm frustrated that oftentimes, to me, Democrats are reactive to what the Republicans say. So instead of being firm in our values. So for example, reproductive health, trans rights, my value as a Democrat is that everyone should be able to make the decisions that are best for themselves and their bodies. Hard stop. And so I want to see Democrats be firm in that and defend those values and not always be reactionary.
We've reported in the show on the past about memos that were sent in Congress telling Democrats, hey, maybe we stay away from certain issues that aren't sort of populist sort of issues. Trans rights would be one of them. So how do you respond to that? Are you going to be somebody that's going to be out front and trying to help out trans people?
So what's so interesting is other memos have illustrated that the Republicans use that quite a bit as a wedge issue. And so while Democrats don't need to lead on it, you need to be responding and staying true to who we are. And so I will never shy away from defending people and their rights. And it disappoints me when Democrats take a memo like that and decide not to stand up for the people they serve.
Jillian, it's so nice to talk to you here today. Once this airs, there's going to be about a week to the primary. So what are you going to do in that last week or so?
I'm going to be out there door knocking, so I hope I see people at their doors. We'll be on social media, and it's just getting the word out because this is a very important election for people to vote in.
You've been listening to Jillian Gilchrest, Democratic candidate for Connecticut's 1st Congressional District. She's a member of the State House of Representatives. Jillian, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.